You can now find multiple versions of this video linked below, so be sure to choose the experience that suits your preference. As always, timestamps have been provided, and be sure to check out my new React channel down below where we cover more videos like this. Enjoy the video.
The instinct control theory suggests a deliberate plan to trap human awareness through our basic biological urges. Internet data shows adult content now makes up over 30% of all online activity, a huge jump that began in the 1960s. Researchers have found that big companies often hide subtle sexual images in everyday advertisements. These carefully designed visuals work below our conscious awareness while triggering responses in our primitive brain areas, creating addiction-like patterns in our neural pathways. Many ancient spiritual traditions warned against too much physical pleasure, saying it blocks higher awareness. Modern science seems to back this up. Brain scans of people who meditate and practice self-control show increased activity in brain regions linked to transcendent experiences. Investigators discovered internal documents from major media companies that use strange terms like preference programming and desire cultivation in their marketing plans. These terms appear alongside detailed profit forecasts and behavior prediction models, hinting at an organized effort to keep people in lower states of awareness. Research shows that as instant gratification has become more common, reports of spiritual awakening experiences have declined in developed countries. This change lines up with the widespread adoption of TVs, smartphones, and content delivery systems powered by advanced algorithms. The true state magic theory suggests that government programs to influence thoughts have evolved beyond their historical beginnings. Old records confirm that secret behavior modification research did exist, lending some credibility to claims about more advanced modern versions. A search of patent records shows several registered devices designed to affect human consciousness using electromagnetic waves. Researchers have noticed something strange: sharp differences in political beliefs between city and country dwellers that exist across different countries and cultures. These differences remain even when accounting for education levels, income, and media habits. Some researchers point to the placement of cell towers, 5G networks, and other electronic equipment as possible ways to spread this influence. Formerly secret documents from the 1950s reveal extensive military research into mass behavior control. These papers detail experiments with sound frequencies and electromagnetic pulses. Investigators believe these early tests may have developed into sophisticated systems that can subtly shape collective thinking patterns. Studies of people moving between rural and urban areas show interesting trends. Many report major shifts in their outlook after relocating. Some describe waking up after leaving big cities. While critics say these changes come from adapting to new cultures, many witnesses emphasize how quickly and dramatically their perspectives changed. The spread of smart city technology creates an ideal setup for such systems. Dense networks of electronic devices now cover urban areas, with maintenance crews regularly accessing this equipment away from public view, their actual purpose remaining unclear. Ascensionism originated in ancient traditions, proposing that humans can transform into divine beings through spiritual practices and enlightenment rituals. This concept was central to Greek and Roman mystery schools, which conducted secret ceremonies promising divine transformation and documented those who reportedly achieved godhood. Figures like Hercules and Dionysus appear in ancient texts not as born gods, but as mortals who ascended through specific trials. Classical artwork depicts these ascended beings with distinctive features, golden auras, ethereal forms, and symbolic markers distinguishing them from both humans and traditional gods. These symbols appear across diverse cultures and eras. Some contemporary groups claim to practice preserved techniques from these ancient mystery traditions, often referencing historical figures like Apollonius of Tyana, who reportedly demonstrated supernatural abilities after specialized spiritual training. The transformation ceremonies took place in temples and underground chambers with unusual acoustic properties and geometric alignments believed to facilitate consciousness-altering rituals. Similar accounts of humans becoming godlike beings appear consistently across major civilizations, from Egyptian pharaohs to Hindu mystics, suggesting these might be documented cases of successful ascension rather than mere myths. The time displacement aspect of near-death experiences emerged from studying those profound moments between life and death. Field observations indicate that during these critical events, the brain releases floods of DMT, a naturally occurring compound known to dramatically alter consciousness. This chemical surge may explain why memories cascade through awareness with such intensity. Historical accounts describe a fascinating pattern among those who survive. They frequently return changed, possessing inexplicable new abilities or transformed personalities. Witness testimonies mention cases like a Colorado mountain climber who, after a devastating fall, suddenly understood complex mathematics. In Wales, examination of reports reveals how a drowning survivor developed remarkable artistic talents despite never having painted before. Analysis of quantum mechanical principles suggests the possibility of infinite parallel timelines, each containing slightly varied versions of ourselves. The DMT surge could potentially serve as a gateway between these realities, allowing consciousness to drift between timelines much like changing lanes on an infinite cosmic highway. We quickly realize that the life review process follows an intriguing and consistent sequence. Memories unfold in reverse chronological order, resembling a systematic data transfer. This pattern mirrors computer systems during file replacement, pointing toward an actual transfer of consciousness rather than random neural activity. Reports demonstrate how survivors often return with memories that subtly conflict with their documented past. Slight variations in events, phantom relationships, or unexplained abilities. These inconsistencies fade within days as the new timeline's memories take hold, leaving only whispered traces of the consciousness exchange. The concept of interlayeral travel restriction emerged from observations about humanity's accelerated technological progress. While technological capabilities remained largely constant for thousands of years before 1800, the following 2 centuries saw advancement from horse-drawn carriages to space exploration. Historical records suggest these technological leaps originated beyond our surface world. During the Industrial Revolution, patent offices received submissions from mysterious sources, with inventors like Nikola Tesla describing knowledge received from other realms. Intriguing patterns show major breakthroughs emerging simultaneously across the globe, independent inventors developing the telephone, calculus, and television in parallel, suggesting guidance from an external source. Ancient writings describe advanced civilizations in extensive underground cities, with protocols preventing knowledge sharing with surface dwellers. Some theorize these restrictions loosened gradually over time, similar to a parent teaching a child new skills. Archaeological evidence reveals unusual gaps in technological development, where sophisticated devices appeared without the expected trail of prototypes and failures. The first operational steam engines, for example, emerged with remarkable precision. Accounts from various secret societies suggest coordinated information releases from those below, with technological advancements precisely timed to prevent cultural upheaval while maintaining plausible deniability of outside involvement. Across remote regions of our world, reports detail a disturbing phenomenon known as the Unlivable Wilds, suggesting a hidden campaign to force humans into controlled urban spaces. Witness testimonies from recent decades describe unprecedented shifts in wildlife patterns, with predators like bears, wolves, and mountain lions infiltrating territories once deemed safe for human settlement. Examination of soil samples from these remote locations, particularly near water sources and traditional hunting grounds, uncovered peculiar chemical compounds. These substances, while similar to conventional pest control agents, appear engineered for extended environmental persistence and heightened effectiveness against larger animals. Field observations document a concerning pattern of homesteaders and off-grid communities suddenly abandoning their settlements. Their accounts speak of inexplicable crop failures, mysterious livestock deaths, and increasingly aggressive wildlife behavior. Before departing, many residents noted metallic flavors tainting their stream water and bizarre patterns in plant growth. Archived materials point to numerous wilderness preservation projects coinciding with surging reports of hostile wildlife and environmental disruptions. Investigation of financial records reveals these initiatives often traced back to shell companies connected to defense contractors and agricultural conglomerates. Analysis of urban development timelines shows a parallel surge in smart city initiatives. As natural spaces grow increasingly hostile, those who once lived freely in nature find themselves channeled toward closely monitored urban zones. Perhaps it's no coincidence that the only remaining safe spaces are those under constant surveillance. Theoretical physicists have proposed subatomic Dyson spheres, a concept where advanced civilizations collect energy at the atomic scale rather than building massive structures around stars. Laboratory data reveals particles with energy states that defy our understanding of physics, behaving in ways our most advanced models cannot explain. In certain materials, electrons appear to vanish without following standard decay patterns and manifest in precise geometric configurations, suggesting artificial structures harvesting energy at the quantum level. Cosmologists note the steadily increasing amount of dark energy in our universe. Some theorists connect this to these hypothetical subatomic collectors, proposing that advanced civilizations may be gradually converting ordinary matter into microscopic power plants, driving the accelerating expansion of space. Quantum mechanical principles suggest that subatomic energy collection could be billions of times more efficient than gathering power from stars. This efficiency means entire galaxies could be transformed into vast energy farms while appearing largely unchanged to distant observers. Earth's mysterious subterranean structure forms the basis of the layered Earth theory, which seeks to explain unexplained gaps in underground mapping and unusual magnetic patterns within the planet's crust. Cave explorers have encountered puzzling phenomena where passages previously traversed end abruptly, while new tunnels appear in formerly solid rock. A notable example comes from the Rhodope Mountains of Bulgaria, where a 1961 team documented an enormous chamber that subsequent expeditions could never relocate despite using identical coordinates. Geological research shows Earth's core spins slightly faster than its surface, advancing approximately 0.3 to 0.5 degrees annually ahead of the outer layers. This rotational difference could theoretically cause tectonic plates to mesh like gears, creating temporary caverns and passages as they move. Unusual magnetic disturbances have been observed in certain deep cave networks, defying known geological patterns. The Mammoth Cave system in Kentucky displays magnetic fluctuations that seem to shift over time, as if responding to movement in the depths below. Ancient civilizations worldwide shared similar tales of vanishing underground kingdoms. Some researchers suggest these weren't merely myths, but observations of Earth's mobile layers. The Norse described Svartalfheim, a realm accessible only during specific planetary alignments, perhaps their interpretation of these geological movements. Tentative Timelines explores the possibility of secret government operations manipulating time itself. Across remote forests worldwide, geological anomalies have been documented, ancient stone formations shifting positions in ways that defy human intervention, natural erosion, or seismic activity. Declassified documents from the 1970s reveal military research into what was termed temporal displacement, focusing on test sites with formations over 10,000 years old. These locations were deliberately chosen for their isolation, stable landmarks, and well-documented histories. Unusual energy readings at these sites mirror patterns observed in quantum physics experiments. Nearby residents report frequent déjà vu, with some recalling events that others insist never happened. Even the stones themselves hold strange inconsistencies. Molecular analysis shows sections of rock aging at different rates, with some areas appearing centuries younger than the rest. This contradicts known geological processes, raising the question, have these stones existed in multiple points in time? Photographs buried in government archives reveal a decades-long pattern. When overlaid, images of these sites show subtle but deliberate shifts, suggesting controlled movement rather than random change. Soul Sentience offers a unique blend of spiritual and evolutionary thought to explain the emergence of human consciousness. Evidence has emerged suggesting that dolphins, elephants, and great apes demonstrate self-awareness through mirror tests and intricate social behaviors, signs of a deeper intelligence that could have carried over from an ancient species. Accounts from civilizations across the world, from Egyptian to Hindu traditions, describe cycles in which consciousness shifts between different forms of life. These writings often compare awareness to water flowing between vessels, hinting at the possibility that intelligence is not created anew, but instead recycled over time. Studies of the fossil record reveal periods where species experienced abrupt increases in brain size and tool use, particularly during the emergence of early hominids. These unexplained cognitive leaps coincide with the disappearance of prior advanced species, supporting the idea that consciousness itself may have transferred rather than evolved in isolation. Some proponents of this theory point to the Fermi paradox. If Earth is so hospitable to intelligent life, why don't we see remnants of past civilizations? The idea suggests that these civilizations left no ruins because they passed on their awareness rather than their physical structures, explaining the absence of tangible evidence. Archaeological findings indicate that humans developed abstract thinking and symbolic representation at a pace that seems nearly instantaneous on an evolutionary scale. This sudden emergence of complex cognition may not be a product of gradual development, but rather a sign of inherited consciousness passed down from those who came before. The Ageless Evolution theory suggests that if an organism were truly immortal, its priorities would shift away from reproduction and focus entirely on self-preservation. Nature offers glimpses of this possibility. Certain jellyfish, for example, can reverse their aging process, reverting to an earlier life stage when threatened. In theory, this cycle could continue indefinitely, allowing them to avoid death entirely. Some accounts suggest that the Mongolian deathworm might follow a similar path. Unlike other predators that rely on offspring to sustain their species, there are no clear signs of reproduction or population growth. Local stories describe the same massive worm appearing across generations, unchanged in both size and behavior. Reports indicate that its hunting style further supports this theory. It attacks with startling aggression, showing none of the caution typical of creatures that must survive long enough to reproduce. Instead, it moves like something with no natural end, no urgency, no ticking clock. Similar patterns appear in other long-lived species. Certain tortoises and sharks, known for their extended lifespans, exhibit reduced breeding activity, suggesting a link between longevity and reproductive drive. But the deathworm seems to take this to an extreme, a relentless, solitary hunter with no need to create more of its kind. The desolate landscape of the Gobi Desert only strengthens this idea. In a place where resources are scarce and survival is unforgiving, an immortal being wouldn't need to expend energy on reproduction. It would simply endure, an eternal apex predator watching the ages pass. Population control methodology is a theory that delves into large-scale social engineering, suggesting that artificial divisions have long been used to maintain power structures. Evidence surfaced linking these tactics to colonial times, where ruling groups emphasized minor cultural or physical differences to solidify control. Records from various societies reveal recurring patterns, subtle distinctions between communities that, over time, evolved into deeper social rifts. These divisions often correlated with disparities in resources, education, and economic opportunities. Rather than diminishing, these gaps frequently expanded, raising questions about deliberate design. Analysis of historical censuses and population records uncovered shifting demographic classifications, sometimes lacking a scientific basis. Researchers suspect these changes were intended to create new social groupings, subtly altering societal structures over generations. Data suggests that certain policies indirectly influenced birth rates among specific populations through economic pressures and social stigma. The effects rippled across generations, reshaping demographics in ways that may not have been entirely accidental. Further studies indicate that divisive rhetoric tends to surge during times of resource scarcity or economic instability. This repeating pattern across different regions and decades hints at its possible use as a long-standing control mechanism. Superstructure prevention theory suggests that an unseen force may actively limit humanity's technological reach by causing catastrophic failures in our largest engineering projects. The infamous sinking of the Titanic is just one in a series of megastructure disasters that defy conventional engineering explanations. Similar patterns emerge in other ambitious undertakings, from the collapse of the original Tay Bridge to the eerie vibrations that nearly tore apart the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Each failure occurred despite meticulous planning and seemingly sound engineering. Unusual evidence ties these incidents to strange electromagnetic disturbances and unexplained equipment malfunctions during construction. Workers on various mega-projects have reported witnessing odd lights and experiencing baffling technical disruptions, particularly as structures approached certain size thresholds. Researchers found that attempts to build beyond specific dimensional limits often face increasingly severe complications. The theory proposes that advanced alien civilizations may impose these restrictions to prevent humanity from reaching interstellar expansion, especially the construction of Dyson spheres. Modern construction data reinforces this idea, revealing that success rates plummet once certain size thresholds are exceeded, particularly in space-based projects. The repeated failure of large-scale space initiatives, despite cutting-edge advancements in engineering and materials science, adds to the growing suspicion that some external force may be enforcing technological containment. Human inferiority theory derives from a long history of archaeological discoveries that challenge conventional narratives, only to be quietly dismissed or buried. Across Turkey and South America, researchers have uncovered massive stone structures that seem far beyond the engineering capabilities of ancient civilizations. Yet, time and again, these findings slip from public attention, leaving behind more questions than answers. Archived records reveal multiple instances where universities and museums have stored away or even lost artifacts that hint at an advanced civilization predating known history. The Smithsonian itself allegedly shipped several giant skeletons to warehouse archives in the early 1900s, artifacts that, to this day, remain unaccounted for. Analysis of historical trends suggests a pattern. Mainstream science frequently ridicules or outright ignores researchers who propose alternative origins for humanity, despite compelling architectural and genetic evidence. The reluctance to even entertain these possibilities has led some to suspect an orchestrated effort to preserve humanity's assumed place at the top of Earth's evolutionary hierarchy. Ancient texts across nearly every culture describe encounters with superior beings, whether gods, giants, or technologically advanced civilizations. Yet modern institutions consistently reinterpret these accounts as allegory, even when supporting archaeological evidence emerges. The theory highlights how swiftly authorities work to dismiss anything that challenges human supremacy. From impossibly precise pyramids to anomalous artifacts displaying advanced knowledge, each revelation is met with a familiar response: skepticism, suppression, and silence. If true, this pattern suggests that preserving humanity's self-image may take precedence over uncovering the deeper truths of our past. The Deluge Refugees narrative explores ancient civilizations that allegedly escaped catastrophic global flooding by seeking shelter in mountain sanctuaries. Our investigation revealed settlements located unusually high above historical waterlines across various mountain ranges, with striking similarities in their construction techniques. Documents from the period show evidence of sophisticated stoneworking methods in high-altitude Himalayan caves, indicating organized groups established long-term residences there. These caves feature remarkable waterproofing using complex resin compounds that contemporary science finds difficult to replicate. Historical accounts describe unusual magnetic properties in artifacts from certain mountain-dwelling cultures, particularly in objects known as Dropa stones. These disc-shaped stones, discovered primarily at elevations exceeding 12,000 feet, contain high concentrations of cobalt and other metals arranged in precise geometric patterns. Witness testimonies mention ancient Sanskrit texts that describe sky vessels transporting survivors to mountain peaks, where they utilized singing stones to command the elements. These writings correspond with local folklore about ancestors who possessed stones capable of parting the waters. These mountain refugees contained preserved food stores, elaborate drainage systems, and ceremonial chambers. The strategic positioning and engineering of these sites suggest their builders anticipated rising water levels. Examination of the sites reveals stone circles at these elevations bearing markings identical to those found on artifacts from several prehistoric coastal cities, now submerged beneath the oceans. This connection hints at a network of cultures that coordinated their escape to higher ground. Revolving door civilizations theory stems from patterns found in ancient royal bloodlines and ruling classes. Records indicate suspicious similarities between rulers separated by generations, from matching physical features to identical governing styles and personal habits. Our investigation revealed peculiar gaps in succession, where powerful dynasties would seemingly vanish, only for rulers with striking parallels to emerge decades later under different names. These patterns span across disconnected cultures and continents, hinting at a possible immortal class taking turns at the helm of civilization. Documents from the period show ancient texts describing rituals and substances meant to grant eternal life, with many of these documents traced back to royal archives and private noble collections. The same symbols and references to immortality appear in royal seals and family crests across different eras and regions. Witness testimonies mention rulers who seem to possess impossible knowledge of past events, speaking in detail about matters that happened generations before their time. Some displayed expertise in forgotten languages and customs that had died out centuries prior. The theory lost momentum in the 1800s as photography became widespread. Interestingly, this coincides with ruling families becoming more reclusive and camera-shy, while also marking the beginning of modern democracy's rise. Some theorists suggest this wasn't a natural evolution, but rather the immortals adapting to new technological threats. In contemporary times, facial recognition and digital records make it nearly impossible for anyone to maintain such a rotating system of identities. The immortal rulers, if they exist, have likely discovered new methods to exercise control from the shadows. The extreme layer cake theory describes a vast unified power structure disguised as separate entities. Beyond conventional notions of government control, this theory suggests major corporations function as extensions of a singular authority while maintaining the appearance of competition and free market principles. Historical accounts describe unusual patterns of identical decision-making among supposedly competing mega-corporations, particularly in telecommunications and energy. The synchronized timing and nature of these actions suggest centralized control rather than natural market forces. Evidence from multiple sources details how board members across different corporations attended closed-door meetings with federal officials years before their official appointments. This pattern indicates predetermined selection rather than merit-based hiring. These individuals frequently rotate between corporate leadership and government positions, creating an intricate web of shared control. Analysis of antitrust cases suggests that despite clear monopolistic practices, certain corporations remain untouched by regulatory action. Archived materials point to government officials actively blocking investigations into these entities, with justifications curiously mirroring classified national security protocols. Examination of internal records reveals an unprecedented level of data sharing between major tech companies and government agencies, far beyond the scope of any public partnerships or legal requirements. This indicates these corporations aren't merely cooperating with authority, they may actually be authority operating under different brand names. Compiled reports demonstrate how whistleblowers attempting to expose this structure often found themselves simultaneously blocked through both corporate and government channels, as if triggering the same defense system. Those pursuing legal action discovered their cases dismissed through seemingly unrelated technicalities across multiple jurisdictions. Sky societies are said to be far above our heads in massive floating cities, hidden from view through advanced cloaking technology. These sky-dwelling groups split from surface civilization thousands of years ago, choosing to live among the clouds. Ancient texts across disconnected cultures reference cities in the heavens and those who dwell above. The shared details in these accounts, mentions of metal structures and sky people coming down to trade, hint at some truth behind the tales. Examination of the sites reveals a connection between these sky dwellers and various weather patterns. Strange clouds forming perfect geometric shapes, unusually localized storms, and weather-defying natural patterns suggest artificial manipulation from above. Multiple radar anomalies showing massive structures at high altitudes that vanish when approached. These ghost readings often coincide with reports of odd atmospheric lights and unexplained aerial phenomena. Compiled reports demonstrate that certain weather satellites have captured images of large geometric shadows in the upper atmosphere before suddenly failing or experiencing data corruption. These shapes match descriptions found in ancient Sanskrit texts of floating kingdoms. The technology needed for such feats might explain their choice to remain hidden. Their advanced capabilities could cause panic if revealed. Some believe they watch over Earth like guardians, while others see them as a secret power pulling strings from above. The third world fiction theory inverts our understanding of global power structures. It suggests that the apparent poverty and struggles of developing nations actually conceal an advanced society that observes the developed world, much like scientists monitoring laboratory specimens. Strange patterns appear in the aid money flowing into these nations, with billions disappearing without explanation. Satellite images of North Korea's supposed wastelands reveal inexplicable light patterns and geometric formations inconsistent with known infrastructure. Leaders from developing countries frequently gather in remote locations beyond first world scrutiny. These meetings coincidentally align with unexplained technological disruptions in surrounding areas. These nations demonstrate remarkable resilience after natural disasters, often recovering with minimal external assistance. Regions officially designated as slums contain peculiar subterranean structures and energy signatures incompatible with their presumed technological development. There are sightings of surprisingly advanced technology in isolated villages, though these observations are typically dismissed as illusions or errors. Photographers attempting to document these anomalies experience mysterious equipment malfunctions. The interconnected First World, with its pervasive social media, surveillance systems, and constant connectivity, might represent an elaborate containment system. Meanwhile, those inhabiting supposedly underdeveloped regions may enjoy genuine freedom while observing their experiment in human behavior unfolding throughout the developed world. No small businesses can be traced back to the sharp decline of mom-and-pop stores since the 1980s. Records indicate major corporations like Walmart and Amazon grew their market share by 400%, while local shops dropped by half. Initial investigation revealed evidence of larger companies buying patents solely to prevent smaller rivals from using them. In 2019 alone, the top 10 retail giants collectively acquired over 12,000 patents, yet only used about 15% of them in their products. Analysis of the data suggests suspicious patterns in loan rejection rates. Small business loan applications face an 80% denial rate when competing directly with major chains, compared to only 40% in other sectors. Banking records show identical business plans getting approved when backed by corporate entities. Examination of the sites reveals oddly similar local zoning changes across different states, always favoring big box stores while adding new hurdles for small shops. Property records show corporate entities quietly buying key retail locations years before announcing expansion plans. Witness testimonies mention former bureaucrats coming forward about pressure to add complex permit requirements that only teams of corporate lawyers could navigate. The average time to start a small business jumped from 6 days in 1980 to 180 days now, while corporate subsidiaries get fast-tracked. Archived materials point to leaked internal memos from major retailers discussing market sanitization strategies, their code for identifying and eliminating independent competition. One memo celebrated how new health code rules they helped draft led to closing 200 family restaurants. The fourth dimensional capitalism theory suggests that extraordinarily successful corporations owe their achievements not to luck or skill, but to the influence of time travelers manipulating the market. Our investigation revealed patterns of companies making suspiciously well-timed market moves with precision that challenges statistical probability. Historical accounts describe instances where major firms executed dramatic shifts just before significant market events, suggesting they possessed foreknowledge. In 2008, several tech giants withdrew their assets mere days before the crash, while archived materials point to others investing heavily in seemingly random startups that later became billion-dollar ventures. Examination of the sites reveals curious cases of companies completely pivoting their business models immediately before their industries became obsolete. Consider Netflix offering to sell to Blockbuster, almost as if Netflix executives were aware that streaming would eventually dominate, while Blockbuster remained anchored in the present timeline. We're seeing strange anomalies appearing in corporate archives, documents with printing dates inconsistent with paper aging, executives making decisions that only proved profitable years later, and strategy memos reading more like historical documents than future planning. One tech CEO's notebook from 2004 contained detailed drawings of smartphones years before the technology existed. Analysis of the data suggests a peculiar picture. The probability of certain companies consistently making perfect market moves across decades approximates the same odds as winning the lottery multiple times consecutively. Yet somehow, these statistical impossibilities continue to occur. The home security effect describes a calculated campaign of fear-mongering designed to keep people in their homes. News outlets continuously broadcast violent crime coverage despite statistics showing many areas becoming safer over time. Individuals consume endless feeds of crime stories and true crime podcasts, perpetuating anxiety cycles. Media companies generate higher profits from negative news, creating financial incentives to highlight disturbing stories. Time spent indoors increased dramatically alongside rising internet usage and streaming services. Data suggests that more hours inside correlates with greater consumption of unverified online content. Targeted ads and content recommendations reinforce fears about the outside world, serving users a steady diet of local crime stories and security product promotions. Prolonged indoor isolation appears linked to heightened susceptibility to online influence campaigns. Less real-world social contact increases dependence on digital sources to shape worldviews. Home security companies invest millions in advertising that emphasizes danger, creating a feedback loop where frightened consumers purchase more security devices, making neighbors feel unsafe and prompting them to buy similar systems. Underground medical networks operate outside official healthcare systems in hidden locations like converted warehouses across major cities. These secret clinics mainly help people who can't use normal hospitals, immigrants without papers, people running from the law, and others with nowhere else to go. Evidence shows these networks move almost expired medicine and redirected medical supplies through black markets. People who work there talk about everything from basic pills to advanced testing equipment being moved through unmarked storage buildings and converted shipping containers. These unofficial clinics employ various medical workers, doctors who lost their licenses, students who dropped out of medical school, and even qualified doctors choosing to work off the grid. Some follow standard medical practices, while others try treatments that wouldn't be allowed in regular hospitals. Investigators found these operations in unusual places, including old subway tunnels and maintenance passages turned into makeshift medical facilities. The tools used range from proper medical equipment to cleverly modified household items repurposed for medical use. These underground clinics often mix modern medicine with traditional healing methods. Some doctors keep special treatment knowledge that's only shared within these secret networks. These operations use strict security measures, with locations shared through coded messages and constantly changing passwords. Instead of regular money, patients usually pay with traded goods or untraceable digital currencies. The collectivism control theory suggests that modern society's emphasis on community and connection might actually be a deliberate strategy to suppress human potential. Research has found that extended periods of isolation, particularly in natural settings, can trigger heightened states of consciousness and self-awareness. Throughout history, legislation and urban planning have consistently favored shared spaces and communal living arrangements over private, secluded areas. Hermits, mountaineers, and solo explorers often reach profound mental states and insights that seem unattainable in social settings. Government initiatives promoting community engagement and social cohesion have increased following documented cases of isolated individuals displaying unusual abilities or making revolutionary discoveries. These programs frequently target regions with high concentrations of people living alone or in remote locations. There has been a systematic reduction of spaces allowing for prolonged solitude. National parks have implemented shorter camping limits, urban apartments increasingly feature communal designs, and media messaging often portrays isolation as harmful or dangerous. Schools, workplaces, and public institutions show a steady increase in mandatory group activities, suggesting a coordinated effort to keep humans in constant social contact. Those seeking solitude commonly encounter subtle forms of stigma or bureaucratic obstacles, making sustained isolation difficult to achieve. Hollow Earth prison theory suggests aliens are trapped inside our planet. According to this idea, Earth's core is actually a jail for advanced beings imprisoned millions of years ago. These captive aliens supposedly created humans as unwitting helpers, designing us to gradually develop technology and mine resources that could help them escape. Researchers point to strange, precisely patterned mineral formations deep in the Earth's crust that don't look natural. These patterns match ancient cave art from around the world, showing creatures coming out of the ground. Oddly, these cave paintings share similar details despite being made by cultures that never met each other. Scientists have detected large empty spaces deep underground that seem artificially reinforced. These chambers form a perfect 12-sided shape around Earth's core, exactly the kind of structure that could theoretically contain powerful energies. Some believe humans feel drawn to dig deeper into the Earth because we're unknowingly programmed to do so. The theory suggests our rapid technological progress in recent times might be the result of subtle influence from these beings. Many inventors of drilling and tunneling equipment claim their breakthroughs came from dreams or sudden inspiration. According to this view, UFOs aren't visitors from other planets but monitoring craft from competing alien groups, some trying to keep the prison secure, others attempting to break it open. This would explain why they often appear near nuclear facilities and deep drilling sites. Unusual energy pulses coming from Earth's core follow mathematical patterns similar to theoretical space communication signals. This suggests something at the planet's center might be sending coded messages outward through the Earth. Soul centralization theory connects human life force to a hidden power flowing through all living beings. Ancient texts across multiple cultures reference this energy, calling it different names while describing the same core traits. Historical accounts describe wealthy figures and power brokers throughout history seeking ways to tap into this force, with some reportedly succeeding through dark rituals and sacrificial acts. Secret societies formed around protecting and hoarding knowledge about accessing this power. Examination of the sites reveals modern elites may be working toward artificial life extension, with billions poured into anti-aging research and cryogenic preservation. Those who follow the theory note how birth rates in developed nations continue dropping, while the ultra-wealthy invest heavily in bunkers and private space programs. Documents from the period show papers leaked from think tanks hinting at population control initiatives designed to limit human numbers over decades. The end goal, as theorists explain, aims to concentrate this soul energy into an ever-shrinking group until only the powerful remain, eternal, untouchable, and holding all of humanity's collective life force. Compiled reports demonstrate strange correlations between major population drops and surges in billionaire wealth and lifespans. Each generation sees fewer births, more infertility, and longer-living elites, a pattern that fits perfectly with soul centralization's core claims. The map control theory suggests that modern maps deliberately obscure certain locations and connections that could reveal hidden powers at work across the Earth. Historical records show numerous ancient maps contained land masses and islands that mysteriously vanished from later cartographic records with no clear explanation for their removal. During the 1800s, systematic changes to longitude measurements shifted certain locations by hundreds of miles from their previously recorded positions. These alterations notably clustered around areas linked to historical sites and unexplained geometric patterns. Ley lines, alleged channels of ancient energy crisscrossing the planet, often intersect at points that modern maps mark as empty ocean or featureless terrain. Early maritime charts from Portuguese and Spanish explorers marked these same areas with symbols warning of strange phenomena. The Mercator projection, our most widely used map style, creates massive distortions at certain latitudes. These warped areas consistently align with regions that ancient cultures marked as sites of power or mystical significance. The mathematical odds of this correlation occurring by chance are remarkably low. Stone maps found in Turkey and Japan show land masses in configurations that differ wildly from accepted geography, yet these maps accurately predicted the locations of archaeological sites discovered centuries after their creation. Mainstream cartographers dismiss these as artistic liberties, but their precision in other areas raises questions about this explanation. Sky Society waste management connects modern weather patterns to hidden floating cities suspended above us. These advanced structures have developed a method to transform their garbage and sewage into rain, snow, and various forms of precipitation, essentially letting gravity handle their disposal needs. Analysis of the data suggests unusual chemical signatures in rainwater samples collected from diverse locations, containing trace elements that match industrial waste products. These compounds appear in patterns too regular to be explained by normal atmospheric processes. Historical accounts describe certain weather phenomena occurring along fixed geographical paths, as if following preset routes. These paths maintain consistency even when prevailing winds and typical weather patterns would suggest different trajectories. Field observations indicate multiple instances of strange objects falling during storms, items partially processed or dissolved, yet retaining traces of manufactured materials. Several recovered objects contained alloys and polymers not commonly found in ground-based manufacturing. Compiled reports demonstrate that areas with the highest rainfall often correspond to regions with the densest population centers below. This suggests these sky societies strategically position themselves above existing cities to disguise their waste disposal as natural weather events, with increased precipitation providing convenient cover while simultaneously diluting their waste. Examination of meteorological data reveals peculiar temperature inversions and atmospheric anomalies that conventional weather models cannot explain. These disturbances frequently precede localized precipitation events, hinting at artificial manipulation of weather conditions from above. The Gatekeeper Privilege theory suggests that modern society's emphasis on consumerism and instant gratification may actually be a calculated effort to weaken the general population. Rather than focusing on committees or shadow organizations, this perspective centers on wealthy elites preparing for anticipated global disasters. Unusual patterns have emerged in how major corporations promote dependency through addictive products, social media, and entertainment. The timing of these promotional pushes often aligns with periods of growing wealth inequality and resource concentration among the ultra-wealthy. Billionaires and corporate leaders have increased investment in private bunkers, remote land purchases, and survival preparations. These same figures often own companies that profit from products and services that arguably reduce human resilience and self-sufficiency. Many elite-owned media outlets consistently downplay the importance of practical skills, physical fitness, and emergency preparedness while heavily promoting disposable culture and passive entertainment. This creates a stark contrast between the survival preparations of the wealthy and the engineered helplessness of the general population. As more billionaires build elaborate survival compounds, their companies increasingly push for automation and AI development, potentially preparing for a time when a smaller, weaker population would be easier to manage with reduced human workforce needs. Fast Food Entrapment Endgame explores the gradual transformation of big chain food preparation. Investigation reveals a consistent decline in essential vitamins and minerals over 3 decades, with some menu items now containing less than half their former nutrient content. Cheaper ingredients and extended shelf life appear primarily responsible for this decline. What began as cost-cutting has evolved into something more concerning, with major chain products containing increasing levels of fillers and artificial bulk, substances that create feeling full without providing nutrition. Corporate documents leaked in 2018 discuss acceptable nutrient reduction and consumer adaptation periods, suggesting awareness of and potentially a calculated strategy to addict consumers to empty calories. Food scientists have raised alarms about mass malnutrition risk if current trends continue. They found that individuals consuming fast food 4 times weekly now require supplements to meet basic nutritional requirements. Notably, these same corporations are acquiring vitamin manufacturing companies. Areas with high concentrations of fast food establishments have seen hospital visits for nutrient deficiency double since 2010. The food satisfies hunger and stimulates pleasure centers while failing to provide essential nutrients. The apparent objective: creating a population too weak to prepare their own meals, too addicted to stop purchasing, and too dependent on supplements marketed by the very companies that engineered the problem. Nutritional value continues diminishing, yet sales continue to climb. Horror normalization theory examines how supernatural and cosmic horror concepts have gradually entered mainstream media. Investigation shows a significant increase in reality-bending fiction like the SCP Foundation, cosmic horror games, and fourth-wall-breaking content since the early 2000s. Government agencies have historically used entertainment media to shape public perception. The CIA's documented involvement in numerous Hollywood productions establishes a precedent for information control through popular culture. There are notable similarities between classified documents about unexplained phenomena and themes that later appeared in horror entertainment. Many works share common elements: reality warping entities, hidden organizations, and the concept that humanity isn't ready for certain truths. Multiple instances exist where fiction preceded real technological or scientific developments. Jules Verne's submarines and Star Trek's communicators appeared before their real-world counterparts, suggesting a possible pattern of preparing public consciousness for future revelations. Declassified projects reveal attempts to study mass psychology and social adaptation to paradigm-shifting information. The gradual introduction of unsettling concepts through entertainment aligns with psychological techniques for reducing shock and panic in populations. The rise of found-footage horror and creepypasta coincides with increased public interest in government secrecy. These formats blur the line between fiction and reality, potentially training audiences to process information that challenges their understanding of what's possible. Air Pollution Implications proposes a connection between modern smog and spiritual conflict. Ancient texts across cultures referenced holy breath and divine wind as pathways to enlightenment, building on practices like pranayama yoga where controlled breathing leads to elevated consciousness. Before industrialization, mystics and holy men frequently lived in regions now known for clean air, mountainous areas, forests, and coastal zones. These locations were significant in religious texts as places where the boundary between earthly and divine realms thinned. Major religious sites worldwide were historically situated in locations with exceptionally pure air. These areas now experience unprecedented contamination, which some interpret as a deliberate effort to disconnect humanity from spiritual awakening. Air quality monitoring became widespread only after large metropolitan areas emerged, coinciding with organized religion's declining influence. Some view this timing as evidence of a global governmental agreement to pollute urban air, using health concerns to mask their actual purpose, preventing residents from attaining higher consciousness through breathing. Meditation and breathing exercises reportedly seem more difficult in urban environments than in natural settings. Rather than attributing this to emissions, the theory suggests pollution functions as a spiritual inhibitor designed to keep humans confined to material existence. Confidential studies on the effects of mass meditation in clean air environments allegedly concluded just before the first major air quality regulations were implemented, raising questions about whether authorities feared the consequences of millions of urban dwellers breathing freely. Sophistry Psyops examines how mass online discourse functions as a smokescreen that prevents genuine truth-seeking. In the pre-internet era, truth-seekers relied on deep personal reflection, Zen practices, and solitary study to achieve insights. As social media expanded, time devoted to quiet reflection decreased dramatically. People began feeling more informed despite studies showing reduced retention of complex concepts. Viral online discussions create an illusion of learning while actually spreading surface-level understanding. The rapid-fire nature of these exchanges provides little opportunity for the deep processing essential for genuine insight. When groups discuss ideas online, they frequently reach a false consensus, an agreement that seems meaningful but lacks authentic depth. This mirrors ancient sophist techniques where clever wordplay substituted for actual wisdom. Tweet-length philosophy and quick hot takes contrast sharply with historical figures who achieved breakthroughs through isolation and contemplation. Tesla, Newton, and Buddha all experienced their key insights during periods of solitude. Modern attention spans have shortened to match social media's pace, making it increasingly difficult for people to engage in the sustained individual thought that once produced genuine breakthroughs. The system seems designed to keep people occupied with shallow discussions while real understanding remains elusive.